Welcome back to another episode of the Juicecast. Today we'll be talking with Frisson and Tommy from Tally.
Tally helps operators, voters, and delegates run DAOs on-chain. You can create or pass proposals, delegate voting power, view analytics, manage a safe treasury, and more.
Tommy and Frisson are a dynamic duo at Tally. They're co-hosts of the DAO Talk podcast, content and marketing strategy leads, and community ambassadors for bringing DAOs on-chain.
In this episode, we discuss how Tommy and Frisson first got involved with Tally and why they believe in the future of DAOs. Frisson tells us about his role as an Arbitrum DAO delegate, and Tommy tells us more about Content Guild, a DAO that decentralizes Tally's marketing efforts by commissioning written content.
Apart from their roles at Tally, you might know Frisson and Tommy for their infectious friendship on crypto Twitter. They tell us all about their iconic bromance and the role that their friendship has played in their journey in the industry. We also dive into Tommy's background as a competitive CrossFit athlete and get his opinion on Zuck's Murph Challenge Flex. We hope you enjoy this week's episode.
Welcome, Tommy, Frisson. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Juicecast. How are you guys doing?
GM. I'm very excited to be here. You know, long time listener, first time caller. I feel like I finally made it, you know? I'm on the Juicecast. So excited to be here. Hopefully you don't notice me sweating profusely due to nervousness.
Yeah, excited to be here. We're used to doing the interviews, so it's always fun to be on the other side of things. So excited to be here.
Yeah, we're gonna grill you. So before we dive into Tally, why don't we start with your background? So like what you were working on before you got involved in this whole crypto thing. So maybe we can start with Frisson. Do you wanna go first?
I was one of those like Web 2 growth hacker people, you know. I was just on LinkedIn, just making threads. I was like, how to generate 6 figures in passive income with less than 1 hour of work per day without selling yourself. No. I did work in growth marketing in Web 2. I worked for a B2B software company called Lucid for 8 years. Many of you have probably used Lucidchart, which is their very popular diagramming software. And it was a really amazing experience. I kind of did the like growth stage company thing. So I joined around 50 employees and then left at around 1,000. So it was like this crazy ride, you know, learning how you kind of like every time the company gets bigger, you have to adjust how you operate, right? And so it's this like continuous learning process. But by the time I left, you know, I was kind of like an upper middle manager, you know, at a 1,000-person company. You're sort of like a cat herder / babysitter, right? And then like occasionally you're like an errand person, like an executive asks for something and you just like go do it as quickly as possible. Right. And I was just getting really bored, you know. So I decided to do something as different as possible. Well, first I started degenerately gambling on chain. In the evening and in the wee hours,
evening.
You know?
Our people.
Yeah, like nights and weekends, you know. Mm-hmm. And then like I was like, wow, Ethereum's really cool. I was like, this is gonna be my like off ramp, you know, out of my current career. And so I tried to do something as different as possible, basically. So I joined Tally, which is in crypto, it's super early stage, right? Like I would say that we've like sort of found product market fit, but like since I joined Tally, so and we still like have no idea how to sort of scale the company at all, right? And yeah, it's been an amazing ride. You know, by the time I left Lucid, like I didn't know how to do anything anymore, right? Because you don't like do work when you're in that role. You just like, you know, deal with problems as they come up and like talk to people and like make OKRs, right? But you don't actually like do anything, you know. It's actually bad to do things because it sort of like takes shine away from like your team, right? Like it's just the worst when you have like managers being like, I'm going to do this project myself. Don't do that if you're ever in that role. Right. But then I was like, oh no, we have to do marketing. And so I like learned how to edit video and record podcasts, and I learned how to write, and I learned how to like build a freelancer network, and then I hired Tommy, and he's better than me at all those things. But it's been a crazy ride. Yeah, lately I've stopped doing all of those things and started doing basically like BD. So yeah, it's been crazy, but that's the story.
Awesome. And what about you, Tommy? I mean, I guess there's a connection between these two stories, but yeah, maybe going back to your origin story as well.
Yeah, I think Frisson and I are like the bromance of DAO Twitter, which now that more we talk about, the more I think about it. It's like
we're getting to that. Don't you worry. There's a whole section titled "The Bromance" with capital letters, so don't worry.
The energy in this 4-person crew is just unreal. Like, yeah,
off the charts.
It's poignant. I can feel it in the air. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been kind of prepping for this job. I don't even consider it like a job at this point for my entire life. Like, I've kind of been doing everything I do on a day-to-day basis since I was a kid. It kind of started back in college. Went to college, and like I said, I did all this stuff creatively with like brand and creation and exploration of like culture and tech since I've been a kid. I think I'm probably one of the first generations that like grew up. I don't really remember not having tech as a kid. But then I went to college, and I went to a large university in Florida, University of Florida, and they kind of like, classic like cookie cutter, like you just need to fall into line and get a big job straight out of college. So I did that. Lasted about 2 months, and I quit. I worked for EY, which is like a big 4 consulting firm. Quit that, which was pretty scary. I just knew like, hey, I don't want to do this. So I left. And I worked in like the fitness industry, kind of doing what I do now, but just on a much smaller scale for significantly less money. But I loved it.
I don't know if you guys knew this, but Tommy lifts.
Don't do this, dude.
We know. We know.
See,
yeah.
If everyone checks the tape, I never bring it up on myself. Everyone just like, it's like, oh, dude, yeah, you do CrossFit, you lift. I'm like, yeah. Okay, I'm more than that though. I have a personality and friends and dreams.
I don't know. I think we should talk more about people's hobbies outside of crypto. Like, I'm tired of hearing only about crypto. Like, I want to hear about that thing that you do on the side. Even if it's something like quote mainstream, like lifting. Like, I want to. I'm sure you have a unique perspective on it. So I'm down.
Thank you. I will explore that later if we want. But
cool.
Long story short, I worked in the fitness industry for about 2 years, and then I was basically like, this is horrible because I can't support myself and I'm not really doing anything like meaningful. So I started to, just like Frisson, degenerately gambling on chain, on the Ethereum, particularly in the NFT world. And back in that, like, I think it was like late 2021, I think we all were, if we were all trading back then, like supporting myself pretty well. But I could kind of see the writing on the wall in terms of like what was coming. And I was working with some projects, doing some freelance work for design and brand. And I was starting to help launch, it was a project, but they wanted to launch a DAO. So I started getting into DAO world and exploring tools on chain. And about the same time, I was exploring jobs, trying to get something more secure. And like I wanted to join a team. I enjoy freelancing, but I like working on a team with like-minded people, which is why I think Frisson and I work so well together, is because we're a team. So I literally I was talking to my friend about this other day. It's like, how'd you get hired by Tally? I saw a job posting. I didn't even really apply to the job. I was like, okay, how do I get these people's attention? And I just like cold DM'd the Twitter account.
No, you applied.
Did I
apply? I know you applied because people who do that annoy me. It's like,
shit. Well,
doing the DM is a good idea, but like also follow the outline process.
Well, yeah, I don't even really remember submitting the application, but I did. And then I cold DM Frisson. I actually like looked at it the other day, the actual like DM. And that was it.
Frame it.
And I think within like a week I was hired. Yeah. It just kind of worked. So here I am.
So going to like Tally, it's basically like a homepage for on-chain DAOs. Like you can delegate voting power, create or pass proposals, view analytics, manage safe treasury, and more. So it's like this one-stop shop for DAOs. And since both of you have contributed to Tally over the last year or so, like you mentioned how you got involved with Tally, but I feel like it's one thing to join like a crypto organization in the bull, but another to stay in the bear. So I'm wondering if each of you could speak to like what the experience has been and maybe what about the product has made you stay, like what you like about it. Do you want to start, Tommy?
I was hired about a year ago, which is wild. And me and Frisson are talking a lot now about, where we're going next. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, we joined her in the bear. And basically, I think Frisson and I think everyone on the team, because everyone's pretty much stuck around since I was hired, was super committed to the product. And more importantly, I think not so much the product, but the ecosystem as a whole, i.e. like the DAO ecosystem and getting involved with DAOs and kind of seeing them as the future of organization and work. And one of those like parts of crypto that is, I don't want to like offend anyone, but like is real or like can have meaningful change. It is not just like pure speculation and gambling and casinofication of tech,
Right.
Which is I think like why I am so drawn to Tally and drawn to DAOs is because of that aspect of it. I see the future that, is not guaranteed, but I want to build that future. I think we want to build that future. And I think that's kind of the common thread with everyone who works at Tally. That has kind of kept us going throughout the bear, especially with like Dennison and Raph at the head. If anyone isn't familiar with Dennison, just go like peek over at his Twitter and you'll see what I'm talking about. He's one of the more like passionate people in the world, whether it comes to DAOs or anything else. So having him kind of be the leader of the organization along with Raph, who's like the more technical side of things, has been incredible for maintaining like morale throughout the bear. From Tally's perspective, like, yeah, we see the effects of the bear, but also like we've been growing significantly throughout the entire thing. And I think that's just because, back to what I said, like people see it as one of like the real use cases for crypto and blockchain technology moving forward. And there's still a lot of work to do, but we've grown significantly, launched a podcast, host a lot of events, seen a lot of growth like from the people that are building. So I think for me, it's just been that idea and that concept and that internal passion of like every day I work with Tally and I absolutely love it because I know I am like not single-handedly, but like we are single-handedly like on the front lines building the future. So yeah, that was kind of a ramble, but Frisson, you want to like jump in on that?
So when Tommy and I joined Tally, it was like completely engineering led. So I was interviewing with Adrian, who's really awesome. If you don't know him, he's like our UX lead.
Okay.
Super, super nice guy and super smart. And I was interviewing with him and he was like, yeah, I'm a software engineer, but I also do all these other roles and I didn't really want to be an engineer like for a while. So I joined Tally because everyone else is more technical than me and I can just do design. And I was like, everyone's more technical than you? Like, what?
Oh no.
But like Dennison and they're the founders and Raph is the CTO, and Dennison is the CEO, but Dennison like knows more about Governor, like the underlying governance smart contract primitive than like basically anyone on earth. And so it was very interesting. And I think it's also one of the key reasons why Tally is still here. And we've been able to sort of like not only maintain our velocity during the bear, but actually like drive adoption up a lot is like there is this really strong product foundation in place. And they were kind of like, we should probably do some form of marketing. and that was kind of like the genesis behind why Tommy and I, were hired originally. The product itself is a lot more technical than people think, right? You look at it and you're like, oh, it's like a homepage for DAOs, right? But the nuances of how it works, where like Tally is just the front end, right? And the actual DAO operations are all on chain. Right, is actually, it's quite nuanced. And it took me several months. I was like all full of myself, like, I've been like doing nights and weekend crypto for like a year and a half. Like I'm technical for a marketer, right? But it took me like 3 to 6 months, actually, I would say, to like understand how Tally works and why it works the way that it does.
Totally.
Which I think is actually like the other reason that, because you guys kind of asked about like us still working here, which is partially because we like Tally, but also like we haven't been laid off yet because Tally's doing well.
Yet.
Right?
Yeah.
And also like Tally's architecture was very well suited for the bear market because in the aftermath of FTX and the whole like centralized lending like ecosystem collapse with Bear's Capital and Grayscale, there's been this whole meme, which is now really built into a crescendo with what Jesse Powell is doing at base of like on-chain. Right. And like it's driven, especially like relative to other solutions, like a lot of adoption of Tally, because even though Tally itself, like the UI, right, the front end, the homepage is centralized basically, right? The actual data and the ability to like change anything about any DAO on Tally is fully on chain and requires an on chain like decentralized governance process to execute. And that's because Raph and Dennison kind of had that vision from the beginning, right? That would ultimately end up being the model of DAOs that would win. That ended up, setting us up well. And now I think it also relates to like the DAO zealotry that Tommy mentioned, where like once you become like on-chain pilled, right? Like you kind of realize like it builds like a philosophical alignment with that approach. And so I think that's helped us with stickiness on the team side as well.
So, okay, one thing that we've thought about with Tally, because Tally is providing a service to DAOs, right? It's a tool for DAOs, but Tally itself, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a private company. Tally is not a DAO, which I think is, I don't think it's like a gotcha. I just think it's interesting. And we've definitely thought about DAOs on like a spectrum from like utopic to dystopic. And like, I think it can lean either way. And definitely when we like first got involved, we had like a certain, view of DAOs. And I think now that we've spent over a year working for DAOs full time, like we have like a more nuanced, like slightly yet less utopic, view of how they work. And particularly in terms of like HR, like job security, all these types of things that like traditional, working in a traditional corporate environment can provide. So I guess I'm just curious if either of you want to speak to why Tally is a company and not organized as a DAO, and maybe if there are kind of advantages to that structure, to build a product specifically, as opposed to, a DAO model. I don't know. It maybe it's specific to like building a product, but if you just have reflections on like working on in like a corporate setting versus a DAO, that's also relevant too.
I have lots of thoughts. But Tommy, feel free to interrupt anytime. First of all, like thinking about the current state of Tally, right? I think it's quite analogous to the Uniswap front end, right?
Yeah.
So, and Uniswap Labs. So like the Uniswap front end and like the Uniswap team that built the Uniswap wallet and their front end and like is building V4, right? They're a service provider to the DAO, and the front end has the same relationship with like Uniswap V2 and V3 that Tally has with Governor, where you always see them post this, right? Like when the Ben token or whatever that was got like delisted from the Uniswap front end, they're like, they can't be like, you should go use blankety blank instead of Uniswap, like for legal reasons. But they're like, just FYI, no one can delist anything from the protocol, but the front end is run by like, Uniswap Labs, and that's how it works, right? So like in the current state, like Tally is a centralized company, and Tally.xyz is run by Tally, the centralized company. That's like one of a bunch of reasons that Governor has kind of like won as the on-chain governance framework, is that like the smart contract set is like decoupled from the front ends. So there's like other awesome front ends like Boardroom and Karma and others, right? Like a DAO, if you just don't even want to use a front end, you can like roll your own front end. We even built like a super decentralized version of Tally called Tally Zero that if anyone's interested in hacking on, like let me know, because it's kind of like 95% done, but and there's like a lot more that can be added to it, that where the front end lives on IPFS, so there's like no exposure in that way. So that's like a quick take on kind of like how the centralization decentralization relationship works. And I think that design pattern you're going to see, like you are seeing and you are going to see play out, like, and that's kind of like how crypto is going to scale, broadly speaking, right? Is like the base layer, the underlying infrastructure is decentralized, like open source software, or like software that's fully managed by a DAO, right? And then there are like various service providers who are creating on top of that infrastructure, where it's like not as essential that they are fully decentralized. Now, with that said, we do believe in DAOs. We like believe that eventually, for anything to truly scale in crypto, it needs to be credibly neutral, right? So like Tally can only get to a certain point, of scale, right? Before it sort of runs into, limitations, right? And when you look at like the protocols and the products that are fully adopted in the crypto ecosystem, all of them are managed by DAOs, like the ones with the most market share. So Uniswap, ENS, Arbitrum, and Aave, right? Those are sort of like the four. And like Blur is a DAO-ish. But so maybe NFT marketplaces aren't quite there yet. But in the categories of like these are all like the protocols that have product market fit, right? Rollups, borrow lend, AMMs, and like basically decentralized identity, which is what ENS is. All of the market leaders are like managed via on-chain governance. And the reason for that is like there's an expectation amongst the most like sophisticated like liquidity providers, customers, users in the ecosystem that they can audit changes to the protocol, right? And they have like the ability to have, you know, a veto or a say, or the ability to at least, like audit what's happening so they can exit if they don't like the direction things are going. I think where Tally is today as like a centralized service provider, basically, that builds on top of Governor, which is fully decentralized, is like a comfy spot. I think we're providing a lot of value to the ecosystem and can be a great partner. But I think over the long term, right, like we at Tally sort of believe that like the things that will scale the most in the future, just like broadly, like in crypto and like beyond, will be sort of DAO managed, you know, which I would use like a broad way of describing that, because it kind of allows for maximum like participation and maximum stakeholder alignment on an ongoing basis.
All right, well, just mic drop by Frisson, just like lays it all out. Tommy, do you have anything to add on the like corp versus DAO structure, like maybe any reflections on like working within this structure? Because we'll talk about Content Guild and like both of your participation in DAOs a little later. But yeah, anything you feel free to add.
I mean, it's hard to follow Frisson a lot. I mean, that's why if you listen to DAO Talk, it's a lot of me just like teeing him up and then letting him go and then piping in whenever I can. But
right.
I think it'll be interesting, especially like starting in DAOs and then transitioning over to Tally, and then still kind of, I'm tangentially involved in a couple DAOs. Like we run Content Guild, which we'll talk about, but it's a little bit different when like you are just a contributor at the like mercy of the DAO in terms of like receiving revenue. So I like to think I've seen both sides, and I think that kind of helps guide my content and guides the way I work with Tally and how we guide the product, because I think most of us, if not all, have previously worked in DAOs as contributors. So we understand that. My feelings are still very much up in the air in regards to like what things would look like day to day if Tally did DAOify. And I think there's still a lot of time left before that happens, if it ever happens. And there'll be a lot of innovation in regards to like how that would function. So
you kind of brought this up, Matthew, like in your question, and Tommy touched on it too. Like DAOs have a long way to go, right? Like, and this colors my view of like DAOs and also everything about crypto is like, I unironically think we're early, like not in like a price way, but in like the state of the tech way. And everything is too hard right now. Right. Like, the biggest problem, period, is self-custody. And by the way, this is like extremely important to DAOs, right? Like, there's basic shit like delegation has kind of become this primitive that everyone uses. But like, there's a bunch of delegates in these giant ass DAOs that just like lost their keys. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, now they like, there's no like notification or communication system on chain. So they can't reach the people that delegated to them. Yeah. Or you have large token holders that lost their keys. You also have like liability concerns, right? It's like being a delegate, you know, we're starting to see provide some legal exposure. And like everyone just has their like whatever address that is being delegated to in some like EOA. Hopefully they have a hardware wallet. Maybe they don't, right? And like that entire system is just completely unsuited to like large organizations to sort of like voluntarily becoming DAOs, right? Like that was just random. I just like ripped off like a couple of huge problems, but like I could go on for a very long time about like, you know, reasons that like just a current large organization, like like a large company or like a business or a government or a large nonprofit wouldn't just be like, let's become a DAO now, right? Where you see DAO adoption is where it's like critically necessary, right? So like for Arbitrum, there are various like very important reasons that there isn't like one centralized off-chain labs team that is actually in charge of the roll up. But the most important one is just like, it's kind of like starting to become very important, right? There's over 1 million ETH on Arbitrum. And like for it to get beyond that, right? That's like 1% of the ETH supply, let's say, is on Arbitrum. Like right now, if Arbitrum were to fail, like I would be very sad because I'm an active user. But like it would not be systemic to the Ethereum ecosystem, right? But like as you start to creep up past like 1% of the ETH supply, like people are just not going to be comfortable if it's sort of this like really important part of the Ethereum ecosystem. Like they're just not going to be comfortable like onboarding more ETH to Arbitrum if it doesn't have this like publicly accountable, transparent, permissionless, like decentralized mechanism for like controlling the roll up. Same with Uniswap, right? So you only see like this DAO on-chain governance, like DAO adoption, where it's like essential, right? And that's that like whatever the framework is for like the early adopters, right? You basically have these early adopters where like there's some part of the disruptive technology that is actually like essential to them, and like the legacy system just doesn't work at all, right? And that's where you see adoption. But like as we go up that adoption curve to like more and more things being run on chain, like the technology just has to get better, like, and it's going to, but like we're just not there yet.
Yeah, I feel like you answered a little bit of the next question that I was going to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyways, because I feel like given all of the content that both of you make about DAOs, and that Tally is like a tool dedicated for on-chain DAOs, like you're both very DAO optimist, like on the upside of like the spectrum. So like I'm wondering like if you can tell us like what is the bull case for DAOs? Like why do you believe that this is the future? I know you mentioned like scaling earlier, but I was thinking both you and Tommy could talk a little bit more about that.
So I'm also like an Ethereum gigabull. I'm just going to like lay that on the table right now. Like I'm like a true crypto believer, and specifically like believe in sort of Ethereum's like ecosystem and vision. I personally believe that like more and more things will come on chain over time, and more things will be sort of run as DAOs, right? And like once people get a taste of that, it's not going to be acceptable to not do that, right? And actually this is already happening. Right. Like now it's a very primitive version that is like suboptimal in various ways, but like we all know like how all the users of various large protocols that have not become DAOs feel about the fact that they're not DAOs, right? So like you're actually seeing that already. Right now, maybe the reason some people want that is like not as like mature as would be ideal. Like I don't think airdrop free money is like sustainable and like not like a good long-term reason to want DAOs, but like you see this across crypto where like whatever people's like desire to speculate is kind of like the tip of the spear, right? But like I think what they really want, or the way they really feel is like it's just not acceptable for some like random group that is isolated from their users to like have full control over like a product or a treasury, right? Or a community resource, right? And that's where I think people will demand DAOs. I actually think they are. They actually are already demanding DAOs. It's just very, very early and like it looks goofy, right? Like, but that's actually what's happening under the surface.
I'll take a more of like a thought boy take.
Okay.
I kind of brought it up a little bit earlier, how like I just worked in big corpo world and it was like, I hate it and I left. I think the majority of people, and I've kind of been testing this theory, this hypothesis with my friends who work in corpo world and LinkedIn, that I think they all hate it deep down. Whether they enjoy the work or not, that's irrelevant. It's the way they have to work. Like in terms of like what they're doing, like maybe they feel fulfilled in the work they are doing, the end product, but the way in which they are working and being treated, they all hate it. I think 98% of people, I think the majority of people in the space have a story like that, but most people don't have the guts to just quit and figure it out, or the financial means or privilege, whatever you want to call it, to do that. And I've been testing that theory, and I think the early data is promising. I'm acting like it's a full experiment. It's just me texting people, but I kind of might write something about this and make it more official. But I think, the majority of people hate it. And when I tell them about DAOs and kind of break it down into a simplified, easy way to understand, like the way Frisson just talked about it is for the people that kind of are already existing in that closed system, which is fine. But I think about it more on my end from like, okay, well, how do I get all of my friends who are either still in college or transitioning out into the corporate world to like not hate their lives and not hate their jobs and feel trapped? When I explain DAOs to them and I explain like how like Tally is more like kind of in that middle ground of like remote, everybody's remote. And it kind of puts the onus on the individual to produce, not the corporation to produce. When they hear that, I think the majority of them are really excited by that, but there's not really a way right now for them to be onboarded directly into the system without first still having that 6-month, year-long period of like fear and not knowing how they're going to make money and contribute. So that has to change, one. But I think the underlying like idea and belief system of all these people is like they want it. They want DAOs. They want remote work. They want to, I don't necessarily know if like when people are able to do that, they're going to think they're working in crypto. I think the crypto like name will, by the time this happens, will be gone. And it'll just be like they're transitioning into this other kind of work will have to change. But I think like the bull case is the desire is there. It's more of like unlocking that desire and building the infrastructure and building the opportunities to get people into the space. And I don't mean infrastructure in the sense of like tooling or tech, like that is important. I think it's more like less concrete than that. I think it's more of like a relationship building thing. Like I talk a lot about like Boys Club or Seed Club or clubs like this where like they're trying to bridge the gap, where like the value proposition is a little less apparent because you can't really put a number on it. You can't like, there's no revenue. But I think those are super, super, super important in terms of like unlocking that next wave of DAOs. Like we talk a lot about Tally. Like Tally is great and we have product market fit, but we have to grow the market or Tally will die, right? So I think a lot about just like the market has to grow, and I think DAOs will be fine. But the market growing is super, super, super important. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think also DAOs will have pretty strong, like this way of working will have a really strong retention rate, because once you work for a DAO, like it's just so difficult for you to go back to like a traditional workplace environment where the hierarchies are so strong. And I guess just the gatekeeping power structures that are in place are just so forceful, and DAOs are just so much more flexible, both in terms of like remote work, but also, you know, if you want to work at a DAO and learn how to do something new, or, you know, step a little bit outside of your professional like comfort zone, like you can do that, and no one's going to be sitting there like quizzing you on your CV, you know, like they're just down to have you contribute in whatever way you want to. And I think once you experience that, it's going to be pretty difficult to go back to listening to like Tim at the office tell you that you have to, you know, fucking get your, you know, your analytics and your metrics in line, or you're out on the curb. And no offense to, there's someone that works at Juicebox named Tim, and this characterization had nothing to do with Tim. Just to be clear, in case Tim is listening to this, we love you, Tim. I'm wondering, maybe we could talk a little bit about the DAOs that you are both directly involved in. So Frisson, you're a Arbitrum delegate, and Tommy, I mean, both of you work with Content Guild, but I associate Tommy with Content Guild a little bit more than Frisson. So I wonder, maybe Frisson, we could start with you. Bradley and I actually delegated our to you. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your experience like as an Arbitrum delegate, and how or if your views about DAOs have changed at all, like now that you're maybe more directly involved in one of like the major DAOs that is in the space.
Before he starts, he's not going to say it, but he is the 11th largest Arbitrum delegate right now.
Shit.
He currently, I think, is like, has like close to 7 million ARB tokens delegated to him. So
wow.
With that, go ahead, Frisson.
Also, like Tommy's like, you know, party trick is that he is like a professional CrossFit athlete, and my party trick is that I'm like a large Arbitrum delegate. I wonder which one is cooler. I don't know. It's clearly the Arbitrum delegate.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I've already mentioned, I'm like very bullish on Ethereum scaling roadmap. So I'm like big fan of Arbitrum and Optimism and just the entire roll-up ecosystem. Arbitrum is kind of like my chain of choice at this point. Like it's the one I use the most often, basically. I'm like, you know, a power user as long as you describe my like, you know, failed attempts to understand DeFi as being a power user. And the first reason that I like being involved in Arbitrum DAO is like what I described earlier. I'm very focused on security, and like that's like my number one priority as a user. And so like I just like am super paranoid about getting rugged on everything, right? And like it's like worth it for me personally, like as just like with Arbitrum being sort of like my home on the internet, right? Basically to sort of like be involved in changes to Arbitrum. In my role at Tally, I'm super excited about Arbitrum because the way that they architected their DAO is very in line with sort of like how we view things at Tally. They really took advantage of the governor standard, and made the DAO like modular. So like it's a lot crazier and cooler than I think people realize, because it's clearly kind of nerdy to like look at how the Arbitrum DAO actually works. They have this thing called the Security Council, which is a 9 out of 12 Gnosis safe that has like override privileges on the DAO. That's like not very decentralized, but I think it's like very necessary to have at this stage of Arbitrum, because like the tech isn't fully mature, right? But the reason I bring it up is a great example of modularity and how they built things, because it's its own Gnosis safe, but it's connected to the rest of the DAO. So as an example, the signers on the nodes of safe, they can only be changed by the DAO, right? Like by the governor. So in order to actually change who the signers are on the like 9 out of 12 Security Council safe, you actually have to create a governor proposal. Like, Tally is kind of like the recommended front end, right? But you create a governor proposal on Tally that actually has executable code that like changes the signers of the safe. And then that has to actually be run through the DAO, right? And that's actually like a lot more secure than sort of like some off-chain process for managing who the signers are on this thing that has like basically like full executive control over the chain.
Yeah.
And also it's very transparent, right? There are a lot of DAOs that sort of like lean heavily into the term DAO, but it's actually not possible to understand how they're controlled. And if you're running into that, by the way, those of you out there in the world, it's on purpose.
Yeah.
And by having this safe that's like in the documentation and is only able to be controlled by the DAO, it's sort of this like modular approach where like the governor and the safe are connected and they're building blocks. And then also the safe can be removed, right? Like the way it's implemented, it would be clean to just yank it, right? And like that's good because it provides like this credible sort of path towards like eventually like fully hardening the protocol, right? Furthermore, like every aspect of the operations of the Arbitrum protocol are controlled by the DAO. Rolling out new chains, any changes to like the implementation of any of their chains, like Arbitrum One, Arbitrum Nova, all of the sequencer revenue, which is like very, very, very like cutting edge, like all of the profits that the Arbitrum sequencer makes are put into a smart contract that can only be accessed by the DAO.
Right.
And so it's by far the most interesting DAO that has ever been created because of the amount of things that the DAO controls and also like the scale of those things, right? Just like the amount of TVL and Arbitrum and like the size of the treasury and stuff like that. And so those are the reasons I'm really excited to contribute to Arbitrum.
Sweet. I wanted to go back to Tommy. Matthew mentioned earlier that like obviously both of you are involved in Content Guild, but it feels like Tommy is, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but you're like the brainchild of Content Guild. I'm wondering like if you could tell us like how this project got started, what it's about, and like where you see it headed.
Yeah, it's not just me. It was Frisson and I, but I'll take credit for it. I'll take all the credit for it. We'll keep it that way. Frisson and I, it's essentially just the DAOification of what Frisson and I did or do on a day-to-day basis with Tally. The idea was, I think we had like an interview with Aaron Soskin from Govern back at DAO.NYC about a year ago. And it just had this idea of like a DAO for DAO content creators. Like how do we connect all of these freelance writers and creators who are making amazing content to funding and to distribution? So our marketing philosophy was we're going to subsidize and fund a lot of content around DAOs in Governor and on-chain voting. But we can't do it all by ourselves. So we want all this content, but we need a bunch of freelance workers. And whoops, we work in an industry where that is basically the entire workforce. So Frisson, before I came on, was basically building this network of freelance writers that he trusted and had vetted and had proper voice, but also understood the tech, which was a very small pool at the beginning, but it's starting to grow a little bit more. And he would just cold DM them, pitch them on our article. They'd pitch us on an article, and then we'd fund it, post it on the blog, post it on the Medium or the Mirror or whatever, and go about our day. So then as we started to create more content and launch DAO Talk and build the product, we're like, well, why don't we just turn this into a DAO, kind of put our money where our mouth is? It's an asymmetric bet, right? We're still getting our content, but we're also learning how to build a DAO and like testing the product, which was kind of an unintended consequence was we kind of can use Content Guild to test Tally's products and improve it as we go along, which is kind of something that happened down the line. But we launched the DAO. We seeded it by just basically collecting addresses from anyone who has ever contributed to the Tally blog, whoever's ever written an article, been on a podcast, people we trusted, distributed a contributors token, which is just a token, non-voting token that gates access to the Discord. Discord's where we do all of our operations. And then we also started to seed another token, an editor's token, which is the governance token of the DAO, not a token in the sense that it's openly traded. It isn't just an NFT. We started with just 4 Tally employees. And then as we started bringing people on who wrote and became involved in like our weekly calls and editing content, we started to just distribute editors tokens to the DAO itself. So I think now we're at 13 editors, 3 of which are Tally employees. 10 of which are not. At this point, it is a DAO in every sense of the word, except for the fact that the only source of funding is from Tally. So the only consistent client of Content Guild is Tally, but the members themselves control the funds that Tally distributes into the safe or the treasury.
I want to add to, I think we're starting to make progress on decentralization in terms of the client base. We had our first co-sponsored post. We partnered with GFX Labs, who's like a awesome developer and like delegate in the space, on an article that's sort of like a review of delegate compensation in models. And then we have a couple of other DAO focused organizations that we're kind of in final talks with to close sort of contracts to create content with Content Guild. So that's like the last piece, right, is to decentralization is sort of like, even though Tally does not control the treasury by like majority vote anymore, it has undue social influence because it's the only source of money in the DAO, right? So I think we're making good progress on like decentralizing the client base as well.
Sweet. Love to hear it. Love to see it. Also love seeing you two making content. I would love to talk about that. Like, one of my favorite things about DAO Talk is that you two have this like iconic bromance. Like, even though Frisson is like this dad arb whale and like Tommy is like some CrossFit content
You can
creator.
just say I'm old. Like, it's cool.
Old?
I accept it.
Oh, it's fucking
Arb
so-
daddy. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering if you could talk about what this friendship means to you and the role that it's played in your crypto journey. Like, it just seems like such a wonderful, wholesome friendship that has like formed through both of you working at Tally, and I would love to hear more about it.
I think that like
I want to hear what he says.
let's see.
I'm actually very interested.
So I have like a lot of experience with like sort of direct people management because like I mentioned, I spent 8 years at this like growing tech company. Is like that was kind of like my primary responsibility. And Tommy is like really good. So like I think it started out as just like, damn, I got lucky hiring this dude. He's a baller. But I think it's not just about like being good at stuff, right? It's about like the mindset that's required to be successful in crypto and also at like a very early stage endeavor. And like he kind of has this mentality of like, we'll just figure it out and we're going to do it. And then he like actually does do that. Some of you who are like more new to like knowing Tommy might even think of him as like primarily a designer or that being his like primary role, like a brand designer type person. But like I was not aware that that was a skill set that he had when I hired him. It was like completely focused on content, on like writing, specifically like written content. And yeah, now that's kind of like one of his primary roles at Tally. Like he's just like our main brand designer and like does all the like logos and color schemes and palettes and like all that stuff. And it's like pretty good. Like I think, you know, especially for someone who's sort of like,
good, yeah.
you know, like doesn't really, that's like no traditional background, like, you know, in that area. And so it's like very fun to work with someone who has that mindset, like very skilled and very hardworking, but also just the mindset of like, we're just going to figure this out. So there's been many times that like, you know, Tommy and I just like tried to do something that like we didn't know how to do it at all, you know, and it ended up working out. And I think also like our skill sets are very complementary. I don't know if like a left brain, right brain is the right analogy, but I'm just like really like, this is exactly how it works and we're going to do it exactly this way. And this is like the underlying like mechanism that drives everything. And Tommy is like, this is how I should feel kind of more like, or like on the intuitive side of things. Right. And I think that plays out with like hard skills too, right? Like I've designed stuff for Tally before because everyone has to do everything, but like I don't think any of us enjoyed that process. You know, I've sort of ended up focusing more on like BD and kind of these roles where like really understanding like what's happening under the hood and like partnering on the more technical side with these DAOs is like pretty essential. And so, yeah, an amazing working relationship that like serendipitously occurred, you know, which is really cool. And then I think like also, I don't know, feel free to push back on this if you want, Tommy, but like I think where we're at in our sort of like life arc / career is very complementary as well. It wasn't like too long ago that I was in Tommy's position, but also like I've seen lots of people go through that process. I'm kind of old enough where it's kind of like there's a lot of things that like Tommy is like kind of teaches me about how things work, like honestly, that I think is like really essential for like my continued growth and development. And so, yeah, I think it was like very serendipitously kind of like a great thing. And then you end up like just building a lot of trust, right? Like, especially in crypto, like it's open on the surface, but actually the social layer is extremely closed. And that's because everyone's been scammed so many times that like you don't just like let people in, right?
Yeah.
You need like references, but like really you just need to have been in the trenches with someone. And like we've been through so many things now, like so many things, like, just trying to pull stuff off where there's this like really deep level of trust, that I think is like really rare and valuable as well. So those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, I would echo all that. I think the big thing is like that base level trust and that same mindset of like, we're going to figure it out no matter what. I've realized that is not normal for most people, or Frission's kind of told me that's not normal. I think the biggest point is like where he's at works well with where I'm at, and where I'm at works well with where he's at. Because like a lot of times like he'll lean on me for certain things, like being in touch with like the younger crowd per se. Like, we make fun of him for being a boomer, but like he is, but like he cares. He tries. Most boomers don't care. They don't want to learn.
Right.
He does. And then opposite, like there's shit I do where he's like, dude, no, you can't do that. Like if I'm just like not setting boundaries for myself with like work, because like I don't have kids. I have no responsibilities besides work and working out. So it's like I'm willing to like go really, really far on terms of like working. I'm where he was 6-7 years ago, and he knows like, hey, like you can't burn out. That's the biggest thing is like, yo, like I'm here on the other side. You don't need to go crazy in order to get here and be okay and create good work. So yeah, it's just been that like over and over trust, being in the trenches, not only with the product and with work, but also just like on a personal like working level. So that's it. Yeah. And we just like talk shit on Twitter all the time. So
I love it. Yeah. I don't know. For me, this is like the killer crypto use case. Is like really good friends, Met a lot of really good people in crypto. A lot of people in crypto are fucking funny too. It's a weird group of random ass people, Like there's all sorts of people. Like even just in like Juicebox, like it's the weirdest mix of people on planet Earth. I think all of us have made really good friends in the space, and that's something that will get people coming back a lot more than whatever % of yield that they get from some sketchy ass DeFi protocol, I wonder, Tommy, like, do you even lift, bro? Like, do you want to tell us about like the
Sure.
lifting? I
mean, we need your take on Mark Zuckerberg's Murph.
Yeah, I was
everyone,
actually just thinking about that because I saw that on Twitter. I was extremely impressed. Like that would play some, like he would be like what, top %, very high percentile for fitness, no?
Two things, yeah. Yes, if I want to see the video of it to see if it's real. Not that I want to be real. Like I believe he did the workout.
Yeah.
But there's like standards in terms of like reps. Like your squat needs to be a certain length. Your push-ups need to be right.
All right.
Your pull-ups need to be right. And I very highly doubt he did them correctly. Two, he is probably like on a steroid that we don't even know exists because he's a trillionaire, whatever you want to call it. So like his body is not human, right? Two. So it's impressive. Like it's cool that he did it. Like I love his shift into like health and fitness and wellness. I think it's really good for the tech space because like he's like everyone's god, and like it's cool to see him do that. But I question it. Mark, slide into my DMs. I know you're looking at them, so like send me something on Instagram. Send me the video of you doing it. But yeah, I do lift. I'm more than just a muscled body, I got feelings and emotions. And Frisson, what are you gonna say?
Dude, it's funny when these things intersect. Like Tommy's like, we're at ETH Denver, and like it was just like so savage. Like that week, like what we were doing, like at the event, and like everyone got COVID also, and like he was like, all right, I have COVID. I'm back from ETH Denver, and I'm supposed to do this like recorded workout to like compete for like the national CrossFit games. But like, I'm just going to do that right now and also not take any time off. Sound good? And I was like, no, what the fuck is wrong with you?
He's like, you got to take the time off.
Don't like, you need to recover from COVID. Take time off.
Right.
And then do the recorded workout. Anyway, the youth.
Yeah.
The youth.
That was smart too. If I didn't take time off, I probably wouldn't have done as well as I did. So thank you, Frisson. Thank you for that.
So do you have anything to share? Like, what is interesting to you about lifting? I'm just curious. Like,
yeah.
I mean, obviously, like most of us have a relationship to working out, but obviously this is like a whole other level of your, involvement with this. So I'm just curious, like what it is that interests you.
I said I used to work in the space. So like I started, my roommate in college brought me to like a CrossFit gym. Always been pretty active, but I never had anything really structured. And CrossFit is kind of a little bit of structure. I don't know how much everyone is familiar with it, but there's a bad rap around it because it looks dangerous. But if you go into the right gym with the right coaches and the right environment, it'll change your life like it did to me. So I did that for like 2 or 3 years. And then I started like coaching in it because I just loved it. I loved the environment. I loved the people. And then like within the CrossFit space, you can just do it and like work out, which is like 99% of people. They just go to the gym an hour a day, do it, leave, go about their day. They're all like normal professional people with like kids and children, or they're in college. Or
Tommy.
or you can, if you're psychotic, you can compete in the sport.
Right.
Because there's a sport of CrossFit as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I started competing because I did a lot of sports in college. I'm a very competitive person, very physical person. Did some local competitions, started to like place very well, win some money. And then it's kind of just like progressed for the last 6 years. I've been doing it for 6 years. The next goal is to compete like on the national level. So there's like 4 stages. I'm not going to bore you, but like there's 4 stages. The one Frisson was talking about was the 3rd stage, which I've been stuck at for the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then you get from the 3rd stage to the final stage, which is like the big spot. It's like the Super Bowl of CrossFit. Mm-hmm. Happens in Wisconsin every year. That's where like you can win millions of dollars. It's nationally televised, things like that. So that's the goal eventually. But right now I'm kind of like stuck in that pre-phase. I've still yet to qualify. But what it looks like day to day, because a lot of people like ask and they're always very confused or like impressed, is this doesn't happen year round, but like when the season starts, it's usually from about like January to now. Like if I had made it to the end, I'd still be doing it right now.
Okay.
So January to now, it's like 6.5, 7 hours a day of training.
Oh.
Yeah. So like what I would do is I'll go in the morning from like 6 to 9, then I'll work, and then I'll go at night from like 5 to 8.
Okay.
And then just crash and then repeat it. That's not normal though. That's what I mean. Like when it's psychotic, like
it's not normal in many different ways. Yeah.
No. And it's like a big disconnect in the CrossFit space of like 99% of people don't need to do that because it's not healthy, right? I'm not doing it to be healthy. I'm doing it to perform, which is a big difference. So people see it because it's like the sexy thing. It's like televised and it's like, oh, that's what CrossFit is. You got to train 7 hours a day to do that. It's like, no, to be healthy, you need to train like 45 minutes to an hour, do functional movement at high intensity so that you can like, it's big for like old people. Like you should be able to like get off the ground if you fall down. You should be able to pick up your grandkids. You should be able to get off the toilet because a lot of people don't have that functional movement. So that's the base methodology behind the sport. But then you take it to the extreme, which is what I have done, which I won't do forever. Within the next 4 years, I'll stop doing that because I'll get old. Like old in CrossFit's like 32.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Sorry, that was like I could talk about it forever if anyone ever wants to talk about it to me. Like I try to post a little bit about it on my Twitter, but yeah.
It was not long at all. I said earlier, I don't personally, I like hearing about people's little niche interests. I think it's more interesting than talking about the latest like shitcoin that's going around. I was curious to know, because you're both making content in a crypto context. You can call it like education or marketing or like whatever term you want to use. But I wonder if you have any thoughts on whether you feel like this skill set and this role is undervalued or underemphasized in the context of like crypto companies or DAOs or whatever in this space. At least from our experience, that a lot of DAOs are willing to spend a significant amount of money on developers, and they're willing to spend a lot on certain skill sets, and they're very stingy with others. And you're both doing, I mean, Frisson, you're doing biz dev, and Tommy, you're doing the brand stuff. And like, I'm not trying to pigeonhole you into just doing one thing, but a lot of what you do is what I would call like content and marketing. So I'm wondering, like, how do you feel about this role in like the crypto space? And do you feel like it's sometimes like not included in that like builder umbrella? Like, do you feel kind of excluded at all?
Excluded? No. It's a tough one. I'm just going to preface it like like developers are very important and engineers are very important.
Of course,
think,
not pushing back on that at all. Yeah.
No. Yeah, there's traditionally been an overemphasis on that and not enough emphasis on like branding, marketing, content, like making things look cool, for lack of a better word. And something Frison's kind of hammered home to me in the past year, because I fell into that trap of like, oh, like that's not important. My contributions are not important or as important as the back end. Because without the back end, there's no front end, and like it's kind of like the chicken or the egg thing. He's made me kind of realize like, no, that's very important. Taste is very important. Curation is very important. Content is very important. Aesthetic is important. Not only is it important, but it is scarce. I've realized like what I'm able to do, not a lot of people are able to do, which was a huge shift in like my confidence and my belief that what I'm doing is correct and right. So like back to the question, yeah, it's extremely important. Maybe not undervalued, but underemphasized. I think it's valued correctly because when it is done correctly, like for instance, I think of like Zora's branding. It is extremely additive to the product. And it kind of like Zora is a great example because it kind of blurs the line between the product and the brand, right? The brand is almost the product and the product is kind of the brand.
Yeah.
So it is underemphasized, I think. And I think it's changing. Like we try to highlight that with like Content Guild, and like LDF and Rika do a really good job of like putting your money where your mouth is and showing, what is the value of content creators in crypto, whether it be working for a DAO or working for a tooling company or just doing it individually. But again, like without aesthetic, without brand identity, like the product will eventually die. It just will. I mean, I think maybe the only one I can think of off the top of my head that hasn't is like Craigslist. But like, or maybe I should like deep dive on that. But I try to like put a lot of content out around this topic of like, whether it be reminding founders or reminding people that follow me that like, hey, if you are a creator or you are someone who is, I don't like using the word non-technical, but just like creative, those things you feel and those like reactions you have to bad design or good design are like, that's valuable. There's not usually a monetary value ascribed to that, but it is extremely valuable. And if you can find a way to commoditize that and productize that, like that's kind of the first step to getting your foot in the door. Frisson, any thoughts on that?
I think it's like an ecosystem kind of stage of development thing, but like we're entering the phase where accessibility and brand and design and communication becomes essential. As a context, like Lucid, the company I work for before Tally, right? They're in B2B SaaS, like productivity software. In productivity software, UX design and go-to-market are the only things that matter. That's like purposely exaggerating, but like motherfuckers are not coming up with like new cloud service architectures really to like enable how their productivity software works.
Yeah.
Now, the best productivity softwares also have elite engineering teams because they like work really well, basically.
For sure.
And it sort of enables you to ship new features faster. But like winning is about design and product strategy, and it's about go-to-market. And that's because the technological stack is mature. Right. And like the frontier where the competition happens changes. So I think we're emerging, like we're in a phase transition from like the only thing that matters is making the correct R&D bet, right? To like, it's a mixture of both. And that's why I think you see this nascent community of like really talented, creative people emerging. Like, I think we probably are all in the same like Twitter circles, right? It's like, like the four of us and like Peace Node and Steph from C's Club and Diana from Rehash, like all the people in Content Guild, right? Like I forgot the name of the person who does like Juicebox's design, Juicebox's design, but I follow her on Twitter. She dirt bikes. Anyway,
Sage,
Sage, Sage. Like there's kind of this like, maybe everyone doesn't know each other, but there's like 1 degree connection missing between everyone. You kind of see this like early, community of people who like actually care about these things like starting to emerge, but it's very early, But that's actually like when you want to be involved. You know what I mean? Like by the time you get to the state that B2B software is at, it's just like you don't really have the opportunity to really make an impact. And also it's very competitive, right? It's like, oh, you didn't like lead Airbnb's design team in like 2014. I guess we're not going to hire you as our head of design, right? Whereas like, in crypto, it's like, oh, you actually understand how the technology works and like you're willing to like work on a reasonable schedule and like don't just ghost for like excessive periods of time. Like, sure. Right? So it's like, I view it as a good thing, kind of where we are. And I think that the next several years there will be a much stronger emphasis on like communication and brand design and stuff like that.
Totally. As we wrap up, Can you tell us what's on the horizon for Tally? Any new features, up and coming DAOs that we should know about, or other alpha that you want to share? Just give us the juice.
Yeah. Few things that I'd highlight. We're building this relayer that enables gasless on-chain governance. So we sort of piloted this during delegation week. Various DAOs like Uniswap and Arbitrum and SK Coin pulled together. They funded a budget and where Tally will relay the transactions for you. So it's free, but it's still on-chain. And I think we want to do this with voting also. So you can look for opportunities to vote on chain for free, which is pretty important, especially in these mainnet DAOs where it's right now it'd be $20 to vote. It's pretty rough.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
We're partnering with High, it's a fork of Rye, which is the decentralized stablecoin run by Reflexor Finance. They're launching a fork on Optimism later this summer. And this is our first time we're doing their whole DAO launch for them. We're partnering with them to build out the claim and delegation flow and the governance and doing comms around it and stuff. So that's a great team. We're super, super excited about that. Shout out to Reza, another person who, if you don't know, is a great comms and content creative person to know in the space. We've got some more exciting stuff planned for the Arbitrum ecosystem. That DAO is just starting to get going and lots to build there. And then we're also planning an exciting feature that kind of relates to treasury diversification in DAOs. Trustless treasury diversification. Trustless is a loaded word, but decentralized treasury diversification where you don't have to give it to someone to diversify the treasury. The DAO can actually do it. So yeah, those are some of the things we have coming up on the product side. Look for Tommy to drop more cool vibey shit. More engagement farming from the Tally Twitter. Shout out to Cool Horse Girl. If you don't know Cool Horse Girl, gotta meet Cool Horse Girl. She's holding it down on the Tally Twitter. Yeah. So yeah, those are a few things we have coming up.
Nice. Anything you want to throw in there, Tommy?
I have nothing concrete to tell you. Just keep an eye on the Twitter. I have a lot of cool designs. The thing with design and content is it's you're dormant for a little bit and then everything comes out. So for me, it's just keep an eye on Twitter. Yeah, that's it from my end.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tommy and Frisson. This was a slice.
Awesome.
We've been thinking about it for so long, and now here you are in front of us. So yeah, from one content duo to another, we appreciate everything that you bring to the Tally ecosystem, and we'll be following closely. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Respect. Appreciate everything y'all do.
We're trying to keep the juice flowing. So all right, you two. Thanks again.
Peace.